But my decision to work with women came about for two or three reasons. One is that I think women have still in our culture today, although it is changing, women are often tasked with two full-time jobs, and that is their career and managing and running the family. And even though today some of that is changing, and I see a lot of my clients are breadwinners and they have a spouse who takes more of a supporting role, I do think that women tend to still put this on themselves a lot as well. And so what works for men in their career doesn't always work for women because we don't think the same way. For instance, most men I know who start their own law firm business, the first thing they do is hire, this is an old-fashioned word, a secretary, but they hire an admin assistant. It's the very first thing they do. And most of the women I work with have never had their own personal assistant. They will hire all these other people before they ever hire someone for themselves. And we have a belief as women that we have to do it all, especially high achieving women, because what got us here was our doing of all of these things to accomplish. But to get to seven figures in your business, you can't do it all. You have to start to change your mindset. If you want to have it all, you can have it all, but you can't do it all.
Have you ever wondered how some law firms manage to scale to and beyond the $1 million mark with ease? Welcome, financial champions, to another episode of The Lawyer Millionaire. I'm your host, Darren Wurz, committed to helping you navigate your financial journey with confidence and optimism. Today, we are super privileged to have with us a phenomenal guest who has devoted her career to addressing that very curiosity we just mentioned. She is someone who empowers women law firm owners to achieve their dreams. She also helps people take financial obstacles and turn them into stepping stones. And she's someone who believes that no goal is too lofty to attain. With us today is Davina Frederick, a Florida licensed lawyer, although she's recently relocated to Colorado, as I just learned. She's also an acclaimed author and the dynamic founder of The Wealthy Woman Lawyer. She's a powerful advocate for the financial advancement in law practices and is dedicated to helping law firms scale to and beyond the $1 million mark. Davina also hosts the Wealthy Woman Lawyer Podcast, one that I've been on as a guest myself, and it's great. You got to check it out. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Davina. Davina, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Jared. It's so great to be here. I enjoyed having you on my show so much. And you and I have made a couple of attempts at getting together to do your show. And I'm glad we were able to work it out and get it done because I'm excited to be here and have the conversation with you.
Absolutely. And this is such a great topic. So much has changed since we talked last. I'm working more and more with law firm owners who are trying to do exactly what you are a specialist in, and that is scaling their practices, building those systems, and all of that great stuff. Before we get into that, though, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, how you got started in law in the first place, and then what led you to establish the Wealthy Woman Lawyer?
Great. Thanks for asking. I'll try to keep this brief because I have a very long and storied career, but basically I worked for 15 years in marketing. My undergrad degree was in journalism, and I worked for 15 years in marketing, and I kind of felt like it was a career I fell into. And I had an opportunity in my late 30s to go to law school. I got married, and my husband said, whatever you want to do, go do it. And I said, well, I made a matrix, a chart, a bunch of different options, and landed on law. I wound up going to law school, and so I graduated in my early 40s, and I started my own law firm right out of law school. It was something I went to law school intending to do. A lot of people don't want to have their own law firm when they graduate. They want to get a job, or some people wind up starting their own firm because the job market is tight. But for me, it was really what I wanted to do. My husband was an entrepreneur, and I really loved his lifestyle. And I said, I want to do that. And the way that I want to do that is through having my own law firm. So I started my own law firm, and I grew it very quickly and very successfully, which is surprising because I started my law firm in November of 2007. And if people remember what happened shortly thereafter, right around that time, we began to have a foreclosure crisis in this country. And in Florida, I think Florida was only behind California and New York as far as like the number of foreclosures. It was big, big. It was also big business. And I happened to get into that big business. And I did it by, I had a friend who mentioned to me that she had just left the courthouse and the chief judge came storming out of a hearing room. He was furious at all of these law firms that were calling in from Miami instead of sending their lawyers up to represent lenders in these foreclosures. And it was getting to be it was the beginning of a tsunami that was about to come. And so he immediately wrote an order requiring local counsel. As soon as I found that out, I called someone in the court system and I asked, who are the law firms that are mainly calling up from Miami? And I got a list of a half a dozen names or so. And I cold called those law firms. And I said, listen, here's what I just found out. Central Florida, we're Orange County, one of the largest counties in Florida, if not the largest county in Florida. The chief judge just ordered that we have to have local counsel, and I want to be your gal. And so I got some clients that way. And that's how it started. And it very quickly grew. And I brought in a partner, someone I went to law school with, and we were off and running to the races. And we grew our law firm very quickly and successfully. But a few years in, I realized that I was a different person in my 40s than I was in my 30s. And when I was in my 30s, I loved to work 7 days a week and hang out with my work buddies and all of that kind of stuff. In my 40s, I'd gone through law school, I had gained weight, I was sedentary, I was unhappy with, my health and my stress levels. And I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I needed to walk away from it all because there was some things going on in my personal life as well. So I wound up selling out my law firm to my partner and taking a little hiatus. My husband and I opened a CrossFit gym, which was, we were the third CrossFit gym in all of Central Florida. We opened at the same time the second one did. So it was brand new there. And we kind of ran this gym for a while I sort of thought about what it is I want to do next. And then I wound up opening a virtual law firm. And I also set about on a quest to figure out exactly how I can grow a law firm business without killing myself in the process. Basically, I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this, that I'm doing something wrong, obviously, the first time around. And so the second time I had a virtual firm, and this was before virtual was a thing. This was long before the pandemic, and people had no idea. And I had a lot of naysayers who told me that will never work, your clients won't like it. And in fact, my clients loved it because I did estate planning and I had elderly clients and they didn't have to travel to my office. And so they were more than thrilled. And virtual then was phone and email. We didn't have the fancy tools that we have now. So I started getting involved in coaching and hiring coaches to help me sort of figure out how to grow a business in a way that would be profitable and sustainable, that wouldn't wear me out, And it was that introduction to coaching that really changed my life. The very first coach I hired was one of these big coaching programs, where you go and there's lots of loud music and they keep you up till 10 at night. And then they have offered to give you a strategy session at the back of the room and you go. And of course, it's really a sales conversation to get you signed up with their program. And it didn't turn out the way I anticipated. I signed up for it. I spent a lot of money and I didn't have the end result that I thought I would. But reflecting back, I'm so grateful for the experience because I got what I needed at the time, and it opened my eyes up to a whole new world of possibilities. And so I started a couple of years after I started my virtual firm, I started working with professional service businesses to help them develop a marketing strategy, kind of pulling on the strategic thinking I had as a lawyer and a business owner, and also pulling on my marketing background. And that very quickly really narrowed itself down to women law firm owners, because I had a lot of women law firm owners who had seen what I had done, heard about it, and they were reaching out and asking me if I could help them. And so I rebranded a few years ago to Wealthy Woman Lawyer, just to be more clear on who I prefer, to work with. And so that's kind of the shortest version I can give you of that. Sorry.
No, that's great and an incredible story. I love how you took a challenging environment, '08, and were able to turn that into success. Just being aware of the opportunities that are out there, and I love how your story has evolved. Maybe you could describe for us, kind of where Wealthy Woman Lawyer is today, and what are some of the key milestones that you've been able to achieve?
So, Wealthy Woman Lawyer, first of all, I've been coaching now for 10 years. This last year, we celebrated 10 years of my coaching business, which has been huge. And I did let go of practicing full time a few years ago because I felt one of my philosophies is if you want to be successful, focus is your friend. And going all in on one big idea rather than trying to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of that is really the better strategy. And so I really went all in on the coaching business. I'm still a licensed attorney, and I still do, I've got the friends that need legal things. So I still do those kinds of things. But um, I've gone all in on this business. And for me, it's been just so much fun because I get to spend my days having conversations with some of the most intelligent, business savvy uh, people, people who have big ideas and big dreams, and they just, what they can do for their clients, they often can't do for themselves. And I think that's a common, issue for all of us. It's always good to have an outside perspective helping us see where around those blind corners that we can't see around in our own lives. So I get to work with women law firm owners and some really accomplished, high achieving people. I have worked with men as well, but over time, I still occasionally will have a male attorney I'll work with as a private client. But my decision to work with women came about for two or three reasons. One is that I think women have still in our culture today, although it is changing, women are often tasked with two full-time jobs, and that is their career and managing and running the family. And even though today some of that is changing, and I see a lot of my clients are breadwinners and they have a spouse who takes more of a supporting role, I do think that women tend to still put this on themselves a lot as well. And so what works for men in their career doesn't always work for women because we don't think the same way. For instance, most men I know who start their own law firm business, the first thing they do is hire, this is an old-fashioned word, a secretary, but they hire an admin assistant. It's the very first thing they do. And most of the women I work with have never had their own personal assistant. They will hire all these other people before they ever hire someone for themselves. And we have a belief as women that we have to do it all, especially high achieving women, because what got us here was our doing of all of these things to accomplish. But to get to seven figures in your business, you can't do it all. You have to start to change your mindset. If you want to have it all, you can have it all, but you can't do it all. And you've got to quit telling yourself that have to be the doer, and you have to learn instead how to be a leader and a cultivator of a team. So you have to attract people to you to help you accomplish your mission. And that's a whole different skill set that's required. And it's a hard shift for people who are used to doing everything themselves. So that was one reason why I decided to work with women. And the other was because, for me, it's really, I noticed that the conversation was different when I was in a co-ed group of any kind, mastermind, whatever, than when I was just with women. When I was just with women, the conversation was different, and we're able to talk about things that we innately understand about our experience that men may not understand. Not that there's anything wrong with men, not that men aren't great and wonderful. I've had male coaches, I've worked with male clients, but I just wanted to create a place for women to be able to show up and have community and be able to talk about our specific experience in working in the legal world. I mean, it might shock a lot of people, a lot of men, to know that women are often mistaken as paralegals or court reporters, even today in the courtroom. It's a
Mm.
common experience. And Some people have said defendants. They've been mistaken as defendants.
Oh, wow.
And I particularly, women of color will tell me that. And so we're kind of on a mission to change the way women are viewed in the legal field, and also to up level so that more women aspire to create law firm businesses instead of settling for just being solo and making just enough money to get by.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is about. It is about that confidence to say, if two bros can graduate law school and go out and start a law firm, and 20 years later, they've got a national law firm or a international law firm or even a regional law firm, why aren't women doing that? And women aren't doing that because it wasn't until the 70s that women could even go into courtrooms and get
Mhm.
any sort of respect. So I think uh, it's definitely something that I'm on a mission to help achieve, and help women aspire to create their own $1 million, multi-million-dollar law firms and really create the workplaces that they want to see in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And it's such an inspiring mission, to have that greater sense of purpose. And it sounds like you really have clued in on that. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually a question I was going to ask you was, what are the specific hurdles that women law firm owners face? It sounds like some of those are just some of the societal problems and expectations that often come their way, maybe some family dynamics. And so, with the work that you do, how do you help your clients uh, take their businesses to the next level and overcome some of those hurdles? Could you give us some tips and insights on what it takes to get to that $1 million mark and beyond?
Yes, absolutely. And I know I kind of deviated on your last question, and you asked for achievements.
That's okay.
And I took it down another road, but I can go back and revisit that. But to answer this question, yeah, I mean, I think the number one thing is the way that we, particularly, I'm talking from the reference of women, but certainly men may have this experience too, is that what got you here is not what's going to get you to the next level. You have to realize climbing the six-figure ladder is mostly still you pushing that boulder up the hill, just like you go through undergrad and it's you, and you go through law school and it's you, and you sit for the bar and it's you. There's nobody else. You're there pushing and doing it for yourself, right, to make these accomplishments. Starting your law firm, same thing. But and if you're a bootstrapper and you don't have anybody investing, right, which is most of us are who are solos, but you can only keep that up so long. And to get to that seven-figure mark, I have never seen lawyers get to the seven-figure mark without a team.
Yeah.
And even if they are lawyering, from exotic places or whatever, there's still a team somewhere behind the scenes helping them do things. And I think, in particular with women, oftentimes what I see is hiring a lot of staff, but not hiring other lawyers. And I really think if you want to be a seven-figure, multi-seven-figure, eight-figure law firm business, you really have to wrap your mind around, I've got to hire lawyers. Lawyers are my money makers. Lawyers are my money generators. And that's who I need to be focused on hiring. For example, I have a client who, when we started working together, she was in sort of high six figures, but had not made it over the seven-figure mark. She had lawyers working for her, and she has an all virtual law firm, which is really fascinating. So everybody on her team is virtual. And she had some lawyers working for her, but she hired me because she said, I staffed up because I had a Supreme Court case, and now I need to keep all these lawyers busy. And
Oh,
she needed
wow.
an infrastructure under these lawyers. And so she needed a marketing strategy, and then she needed, like, how do I build this out now where there's an infrastructure under these lawyers to help us build out like a whole firm. And so she very quickly moved from high six figures to, she added $1 million to her business, added a million to her business in our first year of working together.
Wow.
And now she's in multiple $1 million business, and she takes home what she used to make in gross revenue. She takes home more than what she used to make in gross revenue. So She was somebody who was really smart enough to know that I'm going to hire lawyers. I'm just going to teach them how to do what I did. So she had a bunch of people trained as solos, basically, to just do the work. But she's an exception. Most women law firm owners I meet have paralegals. They have, legal assistants. But they are afraid to hire those lawyers, or they may have hired one. It didn't work out. Then they're too scared to do it again. And so a lot of my work is really spent around helping people figure out how to not only how to hire, but how to retain, how to train, how to cultivate that team, and then ultimately how to lead. Because this is another sort of strategy we work on, is developing those leadership skills. Because unless you've been a leader before of people, then how do you know? And I think we think we're just going to know by osmosis. It's like, we think we're just going to be, you know, awesome parents because we gave birth to a child. I mean, it's not, it's, you have to develop your skills and your experience as leaders and managers. And so oftentimes the reason people aren't staying with law firm owners is because the law firm owner hasn't realized that they may be the problem, that they haven't developed their own skills around how to lead and how to manage and how to inspire people and how to attract the right people, how to vet people to see if they're a good fit for their firm. And some of that comes through years of experience, but some of it can be taught. And so that's a lot of what we do too. And then the last thing are, obviously it's getting good clients. There's strategies for getting good clients. And then I would say systems. I think, I've had so many people say to me, well, yeah, I have a system for that. It's in my head. I'm like, okay, that's not a system. That's a thought process, but we need to get it out of your head and out in some form that other people can understand it, follow it, and you don't have to do it anymore, right? We have to let go of that mental work, that mental labor, and let other people take it on. So there's a lot of different ways that approaches that people can have to scaling, but I really have a framework that I teach that is around attracting better clients and then leveraging your systems, that's your talent and your processes, and then mastering your money. And that's really about understanding money and how money works as a business owner, because I think there's a lot of mystery for people around finances and financial matters, and there's a lot of fear around it. I mean, so many people have negative money stories, and there's a lot of fear around, I've never managed this much money and I don't know, and then I freak out and I'm going to scale back. I'm going to self-sabotage because I don't know what to do and it's too scary for me, and money has its own language. And I don't know how to read a profit and loss. I don't know how to read a balance sheet. What does it mean? How do I monitor cash flow? I mean, all these kinds of things. If you're not taught that in law school, if so, how do you learn it? And so these are some of the things that we work on to scale a business.
Wow, there's so much to unpack there. I want to unpack for a second that reluctance that you just mentioned, because I think there's something really powerful there. Um, Tell us about how you've seen that. Maybe someone is in the process of scaling their business. Maybe tell us, have you maybe had this experience where you're working with someone, they're building their firm, and then they're like, oh, wait, no, this is too much. I want to retreat back into my shell.
Yeah.
Just be simple. This is too complicated. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Oh, often. And I call that, it's taking it back. The temptation to take it back. I'm going to fire everybody and I'm going to take it all back and do it myself because I'm upset because somebody didn't perform the way that I expected them to perform. And rather than look at whether or not I train them well, whether or not I hired the right person, whether or not I need to just let them go and hire somebody else and move on instead of getting emotionally caught up in it, I'm just going to take it all back and do it myself. But there's a point where you can't, because something could fall through the cracks and you get a bar complaint, you get sued for malpractice. Like, as you're growing, there's a tipping point where you've grown, you've hired people, you can't just fire everybody and take everything back, because now we've built this we built this machine and we can't be the only one running it.
Mm.
So all of that is emotional. And I
Yeah.
think that's what most people don't really get. They think they're being logical, but really what they're being is emotional. And we all do it. So I'm not pointing fingers at other people because God knows I've done that before. And we don't realize it's self-sabotaging. We're just out there going, I just can't handle this anymore. And I'm just going to go back to try to be what I used to be. But I think once you've had a taste of what can be,
Yeah.
it's very hard to go back and you keep looking around at the other people and you see they're doing it. Why can't I do it? And I want to mention, Darren, the money piece of it, because when you were asking this question, I was thinking about the money mindset. And one of the
Mm.
things that I've seen uh, are with taxes. I'm
Ah,
always, I'm always amazed at, so you have to understand, we're not talking about necessarily my clients. I've had conversations with hundreds of women law firm owners through the year, through my podcast, through consultations, through client conversations. So, but one of the things that I've seen come up a lot around money is such an avoidance of understanding and dealing with money that I will see lawyers who, from the outside, they look like they have it all. They have the expensive designer purses, handbags. They're taking trips every other weekend. And then I get in conversation with them and they share with me that they owe a significant amount in back taxes and they're not trying not to deal with it.
yep.
And it always shocks me because we're talking about really highly intelligent, educated people.
Mhm.
And but they're so they have such a strong negative money story, this sort of fear, because maybe they came from a family and a life where there wasn't that money before. And
Yeah.
so now they have money and they don't know how to manage it. And they're afraid to ask because they don't want to look like they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And very quickly they get into this sort of issue and also doing it yourself kind of thing instead of reaching out to professionals and asking, for the help, because I think attorneys often feel like we should know everything about everything. We certainly think we can. We certainly think, hey, give me an afternoon and I'll go dig into this and research it and I'll be just as much of an expert as you. But like it's just it's an issue we attorneys have. We think if I just had enough time, I could
Oh,
figure out how to
yeah.
do it myself. I mean, I've developed a number of skills from that thought of if I just had enough time. And I think about the time I've wasted trying to learn to do things that,
Yep.
great, I know it, but I'm never going to do it again. I'm going to hire somebody else to do it because, oh my God, that was awful. Like designing websites or
Oh
whatever,
gosh.
right?
Yeah, right, right.
And so it's the same sort of thing, is that our egos kind of get in the way and we think, we're smarter than the average bear and we can figure this out. But really, truly, one of the things I advocate is hiring. It's Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How. Like, and you don't have to read the book. I'm going to tell you
Yes.
exactly what the whole theme of the book is. Instead of you trying asking yourself, how do I do this? Ask, who can I hire who already knows how to do this?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, your life will get so much easier if you just start to think in those terms. And I think high achieving people struggle with that.
They really do. Okay, so a couple things I want to say here because you've given me we could go on and on about this
I'm
for
not,
hours.
I'm I'm spraying with a fire hose here,
Yes,
Darren. I'm
no, it's
sorry about
great. It's
that.
great. Going back to the money story, my dad has often said the fear of success is often greater than the fear of failure. And I never really truly understood what that meant until I started to experience my own level of success. When my
Right.
business started growing, and I have clients, and I have an assistant, and I have a marketing person, and it's like this machine, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is kind of getting away from me. I'm not in control anymore. What's happening?
Right,
And
right.
it does get a little bit scary. And so I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's so helpful to have a team of advisors who can reassure you and give you that confidence and continue to push you in the right direction. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and be a
yes,
support for you so you don't feel like you have to be out there alone, knowing everything and figuring everything out. I mean, I'll give you an example. I just moved to Colorado, as you mentioned, and I have not yet barred in Colorado. I'm considering it, but I had a question about something I needed to do for my business in Colorado. And I looked it up, sort of researched it on my own, and it was a little clear as mud. So I reached out to a colleague who is licensed in Colorado, and I asked, what do you think about this? And as an attorney, I'm a I'm an attorney. I've been 17 years, right? To reach out and ask somebody, and it's kind of a simple thing, but I'm like, reaching out and saying, what do you think about this? And getting that other opinion, it turns out that I was on the right track. But I, I'd rather do that. I'd rather hire a small business attorney in Colorado to and spend a few $100 and then get them to advise me on some things than to
Yeah.
worry about that, trying to, go figure that out. I might eventually get licensed in Colorado. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But do I need to go do that just so I know how to handle a few things in my business? No,
Yeah.
no, and it's that kind of thing where it's with marketing, people doing their own Google ads. Oh my goodness. That's the only thing done for you service that we still provide our clients. And that's Google ads. And my husband is Google certified. And it's amazing what he learned when he became Google, because you can't just Google what they teach you
Hmm.
when you become Google certified, because we tried. And I see so many people try to do their own Google ads, and I think to myself, it's complicated. Like
Yeah.
mostly Google's set up to make money for Google. And
Yes. Thank you
it's
for
sort of
saying that.
complicated. It's right. It's a complicated issue. I've hired people to run Facebook ads and Instagram ads and, Google ads and things like that because, yeah, I could do it myself, but most likely if it's a DIY, the only people making money off of it are Google. You're really not,
Yeah.
because you're not an expert in it. So it's that kind of thing, this DIY mentality that you really have to overcome
Yeah.
if you want to get to that next level. And it can be scary. It can be really scary to rely on people. And here's the truth of the matter. You're going to rely on people, and some people are going to let you down.
Hmm.
And I once had somebody tell me, a dear friend said to me, everybody you love is going to disappoint you at some point. I was like, oh my God, that's a horrible thing. And of course he was true. It was true what he said. Everybody you love is going to disappoint you at some point. And everybody who works for you is going to disappoint you at some point. And clients are going to disappoint, and there are going to be people who disappoint. But that shouldn't stop you from continuing to pursue your goals.
Yeah.
One of my very wise clients said on a group call one day, somebody was talking about, she was really torn up about somebody leaving or whatever. And somebody said, let them go. What's going to happen? You're still going to be there doing your thing. It's not going to change what you're doing. You're still going to be there doing your thing, trying to grow your law firm. Let them go and get over it, really, and move on and hire somebody else. And I think back about how many people who worked for me at various points in different businesses or whatever, and I can't even remember some of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's like cases. Once you've done years and years and years of legal cases,
Right.
I was cleaning out old files and I was going, oh my God, I forgot all about this person.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we hang on to um, emotions, God, really keep us from moving forward. That fear of success, that
Yeah.
fear of failure, whatever it is, those fears. And if we just put it in perspective a little bit and say, well, if I have a law firm business for 30 years or any kind of business for 30 years, people don't stay working with you for 30 years and get a gold watch and a pension anymore. People are going to come and go. There's no one working with you now who's going to be with you 10 years from now, most likely.
Hmm.
Maybe one or two loyal people, but the majority will have moved on to other things because that is the nature of the business world this day. And so it's that the sooner we get over our feelings about somebody not working out or working out. You and I just both talked about letting go of our podcast producer teams is from this last year and doing something new this year. And it's a scary thing because you come to rely on people, but then you start to think, well, I want to do something else or do something a different way or do whatever it is, whatever reasons we have. And it's okay. They're moving on and they're doing other things, and we're moving on and doing other things. And and it will and this, people who are with you now, life may change. And
Yeah.
so the longer we can sort of the more we get our minds wrapped around, if I hire a lawyer and they quit, it's not the end of the world. Yes, even after I've invested 3 years in training them, it's not the end of the world. You will
Mhm.
find somebody else who's more experienced that you don't have to spend time training. The longer you sit in your feelings, the more you are going to hold yourself back and poison your own business.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it can be frightening to hire those people from a perspective of trust. Do I trust somebody, some stranger that I don't know? Well, I got news for you. Can't really trust anybody, so get over it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right, right. Training goes a long way in trust too, in building
Yeah,
trust.
absolutely.
And there are going to be people who shake your trust, and you have to decide if it's worth the second chance or not
Right.
with them. And also, I think too, it's really easy to get shaken, but like if you're a perfectionist and you're used to controlling all the details. Somebody once told me you could control all the details or you can grow, but you can't have them both. Because I'm definitely, detail oriented by training for sure in both my professions. Um, and so there are people who will make minor mistakes. And for people who are perfectionists, it all feels the same. Like it all
Mhm.
feels like that's a breach of trust. But I think too, we have to adjust our expectations a little bit. If we're producing an enormous amount of content, as most people are, producing an enormous amount of work for our clients, there are going to be minor mistakes in everything. And I think perfectionists, people who are used to controlling the details, really get hung up on that like it's a
Yeah.
big mistake.
Yes.
And it can be mentally and emotionally exhausting to constantly feel that way.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with with lawyers is, we have high expectations. I have clients who are, 2 decades as lawyers and they're running their business and then they hire somebody who's never worked for a law firm before and don't understand why they don't understand these legal terms or that or this
Yeah.
process or whatever. Like, are you kidding me? You went to law school for years, sat for the bar, and then you've been practicing for 2 decades. Now you've hired this poor rube off the street who's never worked for a law firm, and you expect them to meet your performance level within a month. It's just unrealistic. So a lot of
Yeah.
it's those unrealistic. So it is scary, but that uh, fear and excitement sort of sit on that same, those nerves and
That's
excitement sort of
true.
sit on that same, line, right?
Hmm.
That same
Hmm.
nerve. And there's an excitement to growing a law firm business. There's an excitement to this project of growing any sort of business. I came up with this idea and I made it successful. And, in my case, this business has been 10 years. And there's something that like, oh my gosh, 10 years I've been doing this. So it brings the fear down a little bit because I go, okay, well, if I've
Yeah.
done it 10 years, I can do it 11, right? But there's always that sort of, every business owner experiences new challenges and ebb and flow and situations in the economy. I mean, I interviewed somebody who's an 8-figure law firm owner, or at least high multi 7-figure, has a whole C-suite team and everything like that. But there's still situations that can happen with that business to shake
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
She still has fears too. It's just
Yep.
not the same. She doesn't worry about hiring or firing somebody and going home and feeling bad about it because she's got a team who does it.
Hmm.
But believe me, it's a much bigger stakes because now she's in charge of a really wealth generating business and there's a
Right.
lot of people depending on it. So it doesn't change. You just have to learn how to manage yourself a little bit better, right?
Yeah, it's going to be there at every stage. Your business evolves, and you have to evolve with it as you go along. Well, Davina, we this has been absolutely fantastic chatting with you, and we've actually gone overtime, but it's okay. I've let us go overtime because it's been such a great conversation. You've had such great wisdom to share. I've got two last questions. I'm going to lump them together. The first one
Okay.
is. What is your millionaire mission? And that can be either personal or business. What keeps you going? What's driving you? What is your vision for the future? And then lastly, as you answer that, can you share with our audience where they can go to learn more about you?
So I answer the last one first, which is you go to wealthywomanlawyer.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Wealthy Woman Lawyer, join my free Facebook group or follow my business page on Facebook. It's Wealthy Woman Lawyer. And of course the podcast. If you like listening to podcasts, then Wealthy Woman Lawyer podcast, it's everywhere that your favorite podcast is. It's on Apple. So it's in all the other places too. My millionaire mission, and I think I've talked about this a little bit already, so I'll keep it short, is really to help more women become millionaires and multimillionaires and create a wealth generating law firm that does that work for them so it supports whatever lifestyle they choose, whether that's to work full time in their business or to have that business running so they can go on vacation for 3 weeks if they want to France, or spend more time with their kids, leaving every day at 3 o'clock or whatever. But I want them to be able to have that work-life balance, but not but make so much money that they don't have the financial stress, because that's one of the things a lot of people promote, this sort of work-life balance, meaning I'm not going to work as much. I'm going to spend a lot of time off, but then they don't have the money to go do anything because they're not making enough money to go do some of the things they want to do. I'm saying you can't have it all, you can't do it all. And I'm on a mission to help, as many women lawyers as possible realize that they've got to stop trying to do it all if they want to have it all. That's my millionaire mission.
I love it. Very inspiring. And it's been so wonderful chatting with you. And thank you so much for sharing all of your insight and wisdom with us today. And
Darren, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you to the listener as well for being with us. As we close, if you would please hit that subscribe button and take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback is so valuable to us and helps us serve you even better. To continue your confident financial journey, please visit thelawyermillionaire.com. There you can learn more about us and how we can help you illuminate your pathway towards success. Until next time, it's Darren Wurz saying, keep forging ahead on your journey to success.